The build-up to Sunday's trip to Aberdeen has taken a twist this week, with a story breaking that the SPFL has decided to get tough on pyro use, and Celtic have found themselves in the spotlight once again. The governing body has imposed a suspended ban affecting 200 fans in the North Curve section, a direct consequence of flares being lit during Trophy Day celebrations in the last home game against St Mirren. According to the SPFL statement, this breached rules H36 and H37, which cover a broad range of what they deem unacceptable conduct. The punishment is clear for any further breach involving pyrotechnics in an SPFL competition at Celtic Park before the end of June 2026. 200 seats in that section will be left empty for one match. Given the way supporters feel about atmosphere and visual displays, the idea of gaps in the North Curve will be a sore one for many. It's not an isolated incident either. Earlier this year, Celtic were hit with a reduction of 500 tickets for the next league Cup semi-final at Hampden after a similar charge. Another breach there could see the figure rise to 800. The SPFL's stance is obvious now. They've had enough of pyro and they're tightening the screws. For some supporters, this is a polarizing subject. In countries like those in Scandinavia, controlled pyro is integrated into football culture. But in Scotland, health and safety arguments carry weight, particularly for those with respiratory conditions. Whatever side of the debate you're on, the consequences are now unavoidable. And other clubs like Partick Thistle, Aberdeen Rangers, and Motherwell have been cited for similar issues. While that was rumbling on, James Forrest stepped into the media room at Celtic Park. His appearance wasn't just about football, it was tied to a special club initiative called Touching the Trophies, which welcomes season ticket holders with sensory impairments to experience last season's silverware up close. For blind or partially sighted fans and those with other sensory challenges, it was a rare chance to connect physically with the club's triumphs, reinforcing Celtic's push for inclusion. Forrest's role in it was emblematic of his long-standing presence at the club. More than a player, a familiar face in the fabric of Celtic. Speaking to both broadcast and fan media, Forrest touched on his targets for the season. There was no talk of personal milestones or statistical aims. His focus was on being available, contributing whether starting or coming off the bench, and embracing the creative and goal-scoring demands that come with playing in his position at Celtic. When asked about potential long-haul travel for European qualifiers, with a trip to Kazakhstan mooted, he downplayed the disruption, pointing out the expertise of the club's sports science staff and the experience in the squad from international duty. Long flights and time differences, he said, are just part of being a footballer. On the transfer front, Forrest was pragmatic. With weeks still left in the window, he acknowledged the possibility of new arrivals, but stressed that the squad already has quality and depth. Celtic, he noted, have always added players, especially in attacking areas, and competition for places is something he thrives on. Watching other wingers can sharpen his own game, and he has faced new signings in his position almost every season of his 17 at the club. The key in his view is focusing on the next match rather than looking too far ahead, especially with a busy schedule that includes league matches, Champions League qualifiers, and domestic cups. Sunday's league opener at Celtic Park was Flag Day, and Forrest came off the bench to make an impact. The atmosphere walking up from the team bus past the crowds was electric, but St Mirren made it tough. Celtic had to dig deep sticking together until the decisive late goal. That resilience, he said, is the kind of momentum they want to carry into the Aberdeen game. There's still the sting of last season's Scottish Cup final defeat to Aberdeen, and while Forrest acknowledged, he was quick to emphasize that the focus is on securing another 3 points rather than dwelling on past disappointments. Off the pitch, his future is a talking point. Forrest turned 34 this summer, and with his contract expiring at the end of the season, speculation is inevitable. Alongside Kasper Schmeichel and Johnny Kenny, he's among 3 players whose deals are up next summer. For the summer of 2027, Dyson, Maida Luke McCowan, Anthony Ralston, and Stephen Welsh are in a similar situation. Forrest was typically understated about his own contract, saying he's concentrating on enjoying his football. Yet the idea of him finishing his career as a one-club man is a romantic one for supporters. Celtic haven't had a true one-club player since Paul McStay in the 90s, and Forrest, who's been with the club since boyhood, could be the next. He admitted he hasn't planned for life after playing with no coaching badges yet under his belt, but he certainly wants to remain in football. Whether that's in coaching as a club ambassador or perhaps even in the media, he hasn't decided. For now, the priority is contributing on the pitch. Many still underestimate him, but whenever he plays, he often looks like one of Celtic's most effective attackers. The right-wing position still needs strengthening, but his experience and knack for delivering in key moments remain valuable assets. Elsewhere in Scottish football this week, there were encouraging signs in Europe. Dundee United secured a draw away to Rapid Vienna, while Hibernian impressed with a 2-0 win over Partizan Belgrade. Those results suggest the Premiership might be on the rise, offering Celtic stiffer domestic tests this season against the likes of Hearts Aberdeen, Hibs, Dundee United, and Motherwell. The latter fresh from an eye-catching performance against Rangers. Tougher opposition can only sharpen. Celtic's edge provided the challenge comes from rivals improving rather than the champions regressing. There was also a small injury note out of the Netherlands where Jacob Broom, a player loosely linked with Celtic, missed go-ahead Eagles Eredivisie opener with an ankle knock picked up in the Super Cup. Manager Melvin Bowl said he should be back next week, quashing any rumors that his absence was transfer-related. As for Sunday's clash at Pittodrie, John Beaton will referee with Andrew Dallas on VAR duty. Brendan Rodgers is set to face the media again before the match, and while transfer questions are inevitable, his patience for them seemed thin after last weekend's game. Whether he offers updates or bats them away, the focus will soon return to the football itself and maintaining Celtic's strong record away at Aberdeen. As the countdown to Pittodrie continues, the sense around Celtic Park is a mix of anticipation and quiet tension. The first match of the season may have brought 3 points, but it also underlined the reality that this is a squad still finding its rhythm. Aberdeen away is never straightforward, no matter how strong Celtic's historical record there may be, and there's a certain edge in the air given how the Dons frustrated the champions in the Scottish Cup final just a few months ago. That defeat is still fresh in the minds of many players, even if they insist they've moved on. Pittodrie has its own unique atmosphere. The tight stands, the cold air blowing in from the North Sea, and a home support that roars whenever Celtic stumble. It's a fixture where the first goal often changes everything, and Rodgers will know the importance of starting well. On the training ground this week, the focus has been on intensity and quick transitions. Rodgers wants his team sharper in possession than they were on Flag Day, where moments of sloppiness gave St. Mirren encouragement. The players have been put through short, high-tempo drills to mimic the pressure they'll face from an Aberdeen side that thrives on turning over possession and flooding forward. The midfield battle will be crucial, and with Rayo Hattad still working his way back to full match fitness, the question of who partners Callum McGregor in the center could be decisive. The captain's role in controlling the tempo is never in doubt, but he'll need willing runners either side to stretch Aberdeen's lines. James Forrest has been around long enough to know what awaits in the Granite City. He's played in these fixtures where the wind whips the ball unpredictably and every throw-in is contested like it's the final seconds of a cup tie. While his game time may be more measured these days, his ability to change the flow of a match from the bench has become one of Celtic's most valuable weapons. Rodgers has been careful with Forrest's minutes, understanding that his experience can make the difference in the moments when matches tighten up. Off the pitch, the murmurs about transfers have only grown louder as the days tick by without significant new arrivals in the attacking positions. Supporters know the club's business isn't done, at least it shouldn't be, but patience is wearing thin. Rodgers has been clear that he wants quality over quantity players who can step straight into the starting 11 rather than squad fillers. The difficulty is that those players are hard to prize away in August, particularly when the selling club knows Celtic are under pressure to buy. It's a balancing act between holding out for the right targets and not leaving the squad light in key areas as the Champions League looms. Forrest himself has been asked repeatedly about the lack of depth out wide, but he's toed the line, pointing out that Celtic have always brought in competition and that such challenges can lift the whole group. It's the kind of mature response you'd expect from a player who has seen every transfer window bring fresh faces for his position. Behind the scenes, Rodgers and the recruitment team continue to monitor options, but with each passing day, the urgency increases. The conversation about Forrest's future as a one-club man has also taken on a sentimental layer. Supporters are aware of how rare that status is in modern football, and there's a certain pride in the thought of seeing him retire in green and white. For Forrest, the idea is appealing, but he's careful not to speak in absolutes. He's more focused on enjoying his football, now aware that the end of his playing days is closer than the start. In training, he's still as sharp mentally as he's ever been, and teammates often remark on how quickly he reads the game, knowing when to press, when to hold, and when to drive at a defender. Elsewhere in the squad, there's been an emphasis on defensive organization this week. Aberdeen's aerial threat from set pieces is well known, and Rodgers has drilled his backline on tracking runners and winning second balls. With Stephen Welsh still sidelined and Cameron Carter-Vickers returning to peak form after last season's injury layoff, the pairing at centre-half is likely to be tested physically. Aberdeen will look to force corners and free kicks in the final. Third turning the match into a battle of territory as much as technique. Celtic's ability to deal with those situations without conceding cheap fouls could go a long way to determining the outcome. The talk in Scottish football circles about the league's rising competitiveness has only added intrigue to this fixture. With Dundee United holding Rapid Vienna in Europe and Hibs taking a commanding win over Partizan Belgrade, the narrative has shifted slightly. Perhaps the days of routine wins against half the league are fading. For Celtic, that means maintaining standards in every domestic match because a slip could have bigger consequences this season. Pittodrie is one of those venues where even a slight drop in intensity can be punished. The refereeing appointments for Sunday with John Beaton in charge and Andrew Dallas on VAR have already sparked predictable discussion among the support. History perceived bias and key incidents from past matches inevitably come up when those names are announced. Rodgers, however, will want his players focused on their own performance rather than the officials. That's easier said than done in a ground where the crowd can turn every 50-50 decision into a battle cry. The possibility of European travel to distant locations like Kazakhstan is another subplot hanging over the squad. While Forrest brushed off concerns about long flights and time zones, the reality is that the season's rhythm can be disrupted by such trips. The sports science staff are preparing contingency plans for recovery sessions, meal schedules, and sleep patterns should Celtic face such challenges in the qualifying rounds. Rodgers knows that navigating the domestic fixtures immediately after. Those journeys will test his rotation options, another reason why squad depth is vital. And then there's the matter of momentum. Last season, Celtic's ability to put together long winning runs was built on turning hard-earned wins into streaks, never allowing a draw or loss to linger. The late winner against St. Mirren wasn't the most fluent performance, but it gave them a starting point. A victory at Pittodrie would feel like a statement, not just because of the opponent, but because of the way it would underline Celtic's resilience in one of the league's toughest away fixtures. Rodgers will remind his players that the early season matches can shape the mood for months to come. Training sessions in the days before departure have been closed to the media, but snippets from Lennoxtown suggest the tempo has been relentless. Rodgers has been working on patterns of play to break down Aberdeen's compact shape, with particular attention to quick switches of play to exploit the space vacated when their fullbacks push up. There's also been an emphasis on pressing as a unit, getting the timing right so that Aberdeen's attempts to play out from the back are met with immediate pressure. Forrest, as ever, has been a calming voice in the dressing room, reminding younger players of the need to stay composed even if the game gets scrappy. His message is simple. Don't get drawn into the noise, don't chase the game recklessly, and trust that chances will come if they stick to the plan. That kind of leadership might not always be visible in the highlight reels, but it's often the difference between grinding out a win and letting points slip away. By the time Celtic step onto the Pittodrie pitch, the noise about transfers, referees, and pyro bands will fade into the background. 90 minutes will decide whether they leave with another 3 points or an early setback. Rodgers knows there's little margin for error this season, and Forrest, perhaps more than anyone, understands that every match, no matter how early in the campaign, carries weight. The stage is set for another tense, high-energy meeting between two clubs who know how to make life difficult for each other, and for Celtic, the mission is clear. Silence the crowd, impose their game, and keep the season's momentum rolling. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications. To receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC, don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Whispers are swirling around Scottish football circles, and the name on everyone's lips is none other than Scott McTOMINAY, the Manchester United midfielder who's long been associated with a move to Italy with clubs like Roma and Milan reportedly. Circling is now at the center of a fresh and rather unexpected rumor, a potential blockbuster move to Celtic. Paradise, as Celtic Park is affectionately known, could soon be welcoming home one of Scotland's most recognizable internationals. The possibility of McTominay swapping the bright lights of Serie A for the fierce floodlights of Glasgow's East End has fans buzzing, pundits speculating, and the green half of the city dreaming. This move, still unconfirmed but growing louder in whispers, would mark a stunning coup for Brendan Rodgers' side, adding grit, leadership, and international pedigree to the midfield. No official comment has come from either Celtic or McTominay's representatives, but sources close to the player suggest there's serious interest brewing. Whether it's emotional pull, a return to his roots, or the sheer intensity of the old firm battle that appeals to the Scotland stalwart, one thing's for sure. If this deal materializes, it could be one of the most talked about transfers in recent Scottish football memory. The idea of McTominay donning the famous green and white hoops is more than just tabloid fodder. It's gaining serious traction. Reports claim that the player has already visited Celtic's training facilities. And while nothing concrete has emerged, the timing of this rumor is significant. With McTominay entering what many would consider the prime of his career, the prospect of him returning north and anchoring Celtic's midfield under Rodgers is tantalizing. Celtic, fresh from another domestic title and looking to make waves in Europe, appear to be making a statement, both on and off the pitch. Idea that McTominay could bring Champions League experience and Premier League steel to the Scottish Premiership is no small matter. Moreover, his presence could serve as both a symbolic and practical upgrade in the middle of the park. It's understood that Rodgers has long admired McTominay's style. Physical, yet composed, aggressive, yet tactically disciplined. Whether this admiration translates into a formal offer remains to be seen. But insiders suggest dialogue has already begun between key figures. McTominay, having perhaps grown weary of rotational roles in Manchester and the uncertain pull of Italian football, might see Paradise as the perfect stage to relaunch and reaffirm his status. Rangers, of course, are unlikely to sit idly by. If McTominay lands at Celtic Park, it would no doubt ignite a fresh wave of intensity in the age-old rivalry. The blue half of Glasgow, currently in the midst of their own rebuild, are reportedly monitoring the situation with growing unease. There's a sense that such a high-profile acquisition by their rivals could tilt the domestic balance. The old firm rivalry thrives on drama, and a Scottish international choosing Celtic over continental giants would be a narrative hard to match. Imagine the scenes. McTominay lining up at Ibrox, wearing the hoops, facing a fired-up Rangers side desperate to prove a point. It's theatre, it's history, it's war on the pitch, and it's everything Scottish football lives for. Some Rangers supporters have already taken to social media, urging their board to respond decisively, perhaps with a marquee signing of their own. The potential arrival of McTominay could spark a summer of one-upmanship, where both Glasgow Giants attempt to outdo each other not just on the field, but in the transfer market. If the rumors hold weight, this could mark the most electrifying preseason Scotland has seen in a decade. While some skeptics believe McTominay may still opt for the lure of Italian sophistication and tactical nuance, there's a growing belief that he's leaning towards a more personal, impassioned decision. After all, the midfielder has often spoken fondly of his Scottish identity, despite being born in England. Representing the national team with pride and consistency, he's become a symbol of the modern Scottish footballer. Resilient, adaptable, and fearless. Celtic, known for harnessing such identities and forging them into legends, could be offering more than just a contract. They could be offering legacy. Italy, though glamorous, would present its own challenges, language barriers, cultural adjustments, and tactical expectations that differ vastly from the British style. Paradise, on the other hand, offers familiarity, passionate crowds, and the chance to lead. Sources say McTOMINAY is consulting family and close advisors, weighing the pros and cons of each scenario. As time ticks, the idea of returning to Scotland and becoming a key figure in a club with global reach seems to be winning hearts, if not yet signatures. The next few weeks could prove crucial in determining whether this becomes more than just a tantalizing rumor. So where does this leave us? Is this just another off-season fantasy, or is there smoke rising from a genuine fire? McTominay's future has been a topic of debate for months, but the Celtic twist has added a new layer of intrigue. His potential arrival would signal a shift. In Celtic's approach, one that prioritizes proven quality with emotional ties to the club's culture and ambitions. For Scottish football as a whole, this could be a game changer. It's rare to see top-level internationals in their peak. Years choosing the SPFL over Europe's top 5 leagues, yet McTominay may be about to break that mold. Whether driven by personal ambition, national pride, or the desire to reignite his career in a familiar environment, the decision looms. Fans across the country, and not just in Glasgow, will be watching closely. This move, if it happens, wouldn't just be a signing, it would be a statement. A message that Scotland's top clubs can still attract top talent. A reminder that the old firm still matters on the grand stage. And above all, a potential return home for a player ready to write the next chapter of his story. Under the lights of paradise. Hello, fan! Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.